Hello to everybody. Very nice to be here in front of you. And now in Ukraine is 11 p.m. At this time, normally I tell the stories to my son, but now I hope to reach different result. So let's speak. Let's speak about biologicals. And just to tell you a few words about our company. So we are BTU, a company from Ukraine, 25 years, more than 500 people. We work with biologicals based on microorganisms, having more than 60 of them in portfolio, with different functions, biostimulants, biocontrol, biofungicides, bioinsecticides, also some organic adjuvants, etc. So 13 of them are already present in different European countries. We also starting some activities in North and Latin America and North Africa. And also we introduce them to use at home and garden in small packaging. And what specialize us is doing thousands of trials, mainly on field crops. So we have a big team of agronomists and scientists and collaborate with a lot of research institutions to perform these studies, to be confident in efficacy of our products in different conditions on different crops. So let's have a look a little bit closer on that. Also, I want to tell you which directions of research we will speak about today with biologicals. So first of all, it's carbon management. We have complex microbiological solution, Ecoster, which is composed with some bacteria and fungi like Bacilli trichoderma, also some nitrogen-fixing bacteria and some anaerobic bacteria. We use it on the plant, we treat the plant residues with it, and we expect acceleration of plant residues decomposition, acceleration of organic matter, accumulation, also improvement of some soil properties, namely enzymatic activeness, biodiversity, and some others. Besides that, we have GroundFix, which is a phospholipid product based on bacteria. So we have more than 500-600 trials on field crops with that technology, with very wide range of application methods, like in furrow, together with herbicides, together with liquid fertilizers, together with urea ammonium nitrate, etc. So very wide range of ways to apply it. Then we have nitrogen-fixing product AzotoHelp, which is based on Agrobacterium bucens, and with which we also have a huge amount of data compensating different amount of nitrogen per hectare. For example, from 20 kilograms to 60 kilograms, in some cases up to 80 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare, both with foliar and soil application. Then we have Liposam, which is quite unique solution. It's a polysaccharides produced by bacteria. We use it as a kind of organic adjuvant, also adhesive agent and antistressant in drought conditions. And then we have some other solutions which we apply to recover plant growth process after different stresses. Doing so much trials, it's always a challenge for us to represent them in the right way, because showing here 2,000 trials one by one will take a few weeks. So we get some inspiration from some scientists who do some meta-analysis. Also today we see some interesting approach to visualize like up to 100 trials with some graphs. So this all give us inspiration to look at it from like a helicopter view. So just to look on this Switzerland scientist approach. So here took few hundred trials with biologicals, with microbial biologicals. Actually, this article was described with New Age International Digest maybe a few years ago. But still, what is interesting here is that they placed the efficacy of biologicals in different climate zones, like tropical climate, dry climate, continental. And here we can see that actually in continental climate where we are and in Ukraine, but also in US, the potential of biologicals is nearly 10%. But in critical conditions like in dry climate and in tropical climate, the potential of biologicals is much higher. Besides that, we can also see that in row crops, the efficacy of biologicals is also nearly like up to 10%, and if we speak about some high-end crops like vegetables or legumes, the potential is even higher. So with this article, we get inspiration to look on our database of trials, which is more than 2,000 trials years. So when we gathered all the data, we find out that our kind of success rate is more than 90%, and with average increase of the yield of 10%, which is quite correlates from what we have seen from that scientist. Again, we are quite specialized on the field crops, row crops, and you can see that like in our database there are more than almost 1,000 trials with different grains, like corn, cereals, etc. And we have average increase of the yield nearly 8.5%. And on legumes and root crops and vegetables, this is really higher, as was tested by previous scientists. Besides that, we analyzed it from different product functions directions. And here you can, for example, see that from our database, nitrogen fixing products also showed nearly 11% increase of the yield, phosphorus stabilizer 10% increase. Here you can see what can be the synergy of use of both products. Then we also interested to mention like potential of mycorrhiza, potential of inoculants, and what if we use inoculants like rhizobium based together with mycorrhiza on the seed treatments. Besides that, we do some analysis on different application methods, like soil treatment, in-furrow treatment, seed treatment, and different combinations. And interesting to mention that, like for example, in furrow application, yes, it's like more or less 2 times lower increase of yields than on soil treatment, but here we also have much lower application rates, and we work with the rhizosphere, so it's quite economic. But also interesting to mention the potential of seed treatment, because here is also quite low application rates. Like for example, when we work with mycorrhiza on corn, sometimes it can cost like $10 per hectare, but it can provide additional $100, which is quite economic for the farmer. So then another direction of our research was to see how biologicals are efficient on different soil pH level. So we had nearly 1,000 trials with these pH indications, and what we can see is that more or less there was no significant influence of pH of the soil on increase or decrease of the average increase of the yield of the crops. Especially it was important for us because we are often asked like how microbials would behave if the soil pH is like 8, or if it's quite acidic like 4, and how bacterial products would act on the low pH. So from our database we see that yes, for example, bacterial products works a little bit better on the neutral or high pH, like with 15% increase of the yield, but still if it is like 4 or 5 pH, it could be like nearly 10-12%, so it still works. So then let's go a little bit deeper in each of the solutions. So first of all, EcoStem, which as I mentioned, is used on the plant residues to accelerate decomposition. We work with this product for more than 15 years. We are using it on millions of hectares, and we collected plenty of interesting data about it. So first of all, the first indicator is the influence on organic matter accumulation. So as you can see, it was studied starting like 13 years ago, and it was a 5-year study done by some research institution. And in this study, we have seen that use of EcoStern provided accelerated dynamics of organic matter accumulation. We tested also speed of decomposition of plant residues on different types of soils. You can see that really you cannot like if it goes slowly on some types of soils, of course it will not be like as in optimal conditions, but still it's being accelerated on different soils. And decomposing plant residues, you also improve soil structure, so you influence on the soil density. Another studies which we have done was to check if we don't increase carbon evaporation by plant residue decomposition. So from our studies, we don't, and we have seen like that evaporation of carbon does not increase, but in opposite, accumulation of organic matter exists in soil. Then very often we start from some control conditions, laboratory studies, then we go into some research stations, but very often for us is pragmatic tests with farmers. So this test was being done with Kernel company who have 500,000 hectares in Ukraine. It's the biggest sunflower oil producer in the world. And they say that there is no field in the farm which was not treated by this solution. They have done few long-term studies. In this case, they tested different formulations of Ecosterin to influence organic matter accumulation in soil. So what they find out that after 3 years of application of Ecosterin on their fields, in average they increase organic matter for 0.2%, which if we recalculate the amount of carbon which we decrease evaporation from the soil, is almost equal to 8 tons of CO2 per hectare. So if we take into account the cost of 1 ton of carbon emission on the carbon market, it could be a huge additional profit to the farmer, like more than $100 or even $200 per hectare. So now we are working hard to generate kind of standardized, certified data for to participate in carbon programs with this solution. Besides that, we study influence of this product on soil enzymatic activeness. So we use the Biotrax method. It's a Japanese approach to which visualize which is a kind of integrative indicator of soil health. So we did some simple tests. We took sterilized soil with 0 enzymatic activeness. Then we used Ecosterin in industrial application rate, and we see that it helps to recover enzymatic activeness of the soil almost to the normal range. Then we continue in some field studies in Germany on regenerative farms, and also we find out that with use of Ecosterin we can both increase the enzymatic activeness of the soil, like from 10 to 30%, but also increase the ecophysiological biodiversity of the soil. So this gives us also some inspiration to go deeper into biodiversity, and we continue with some studies like on influence on metagenome of some soils. So this scientific studies was doing with one of our employees during in her PhD work, and here they find out that they improve like biodiversity of the soil for like 37% wider representation of microorganisms. So then another quite popular direction of biological application is to improve soil fertility and nutrition schemes. So here we have 2 solutions. One is AzotoHelp, which is based on Agrobacterium pucens for nitrogen fixation, and second is GroundFix, which is a complex of bacteria for phosphorus solubilization. So why this is important? Here is one example of our studies in Germany on research station, and you can see here 2 lines, like control 1 and control 2. Interesting to mention that control 2, which is with a higher yield, has lower fertilization rates. Like especially in Europe, but I believe in a lot of countries, fertilization schemes are quite intensive, and very often higher fertilizers application does not provide relevant or sufficient additional yield. So this brings us to idea that in intensive technologies, especially use of biologicals is a better alternative than more and more intensive fertilization. And this is confirmed by a series of our tests. For example, here we started this direction 5 years ago on different crops like corn, sunflower, soybeans. We had normal schemes like 100% fertilizers rates, and then we have with use of biologicals yield increases. Then we had a scheme with 70% fertilizers rate and use of biologicals, so we can see it can provide the yield which is even higher than 100% fertilizers use. Of course, now we work a lot in Europe, in Germany and in East Europe, and in each country we are asked to provide local studies. So we did some studies in Germany to visualize the potential of this technology. And here on the wheat, we had also a control with 100% fertilization rate. We can see that even in 100% fertilization rate, use of biologicals increase the rate, but again, interesting to mention that use 70% of fertilization rate with the use of ground pigs provided the yield which is even higher than with 100% fertilizers, which means again that using fertilizers in huge rates, you can even suppress plants development and suppress microorganisms development in the rhizosphere. Then we had some kind of critical test in Czech Republic. Why? Because we have a nitrogen fixing product, AzotoHelp, which allows to improve nitrogen use efficiency. And in our normal recommendations, we say, okay, you can play, maybe use 10, 20, 30 kilograms less nitrogen in your technology. But our partner tried to find what is the limit. So he had a control with normal industrial fertilization rate, and then he had few variants with 160 kilograms of urea less. And in these variants, he had AzotoHelp with different application methods, and find out that with AzotoHelp, he reached even higher yield of maize in this study. So really, we had a number of cases when we compensate up to 80 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare, and this is quite a huge potential. Then we don't do trials only in Europe. We also have some trials now in West Africa, North Africa, and this is an example of Ivory Coast done this year. So here, similarly, we had a normal control with 100% fertilizer, and we have 75% fertilizer with use of biologicals. So we can see that first of all, in conditions of Ivory Coast, reaction of corn to biologicals was quite huge, because here we have maybe more than 30% increase of the yield. But again, with decreased rates of fertilizers, the difference here is not so big. I mean that it's quite economic in West Africa to apply this scheme. But what was also interesting for us, going further to additional technology, only use of polysaccharides-based product Liposam also improved the yield of almost 10%, even though it's just kind of adjuvant. Besides that, as I already mentioned, we pay a lot of attention to formulation and to adaptation of it to provide farmer with easy of use instrument. In this case, in Europe now it's very developing to apply fertilizers in furrow during sowing, and very often farmers don't have an option to put few applicators for the sowing machine. In this case, he needs to use both fertilizer and biological in tank mix. And when we started this project, the problem was that most of our biologicals were not compatible with that mixture. So we adapted it a lot, and we did a series of trials of application of starting fertilizers together with ground fix. So what we can see here is that if starting fertilizer provided like 100 kilos of additional yield of sunflower, it was quite compatible with what biological could provide. And there was a synergy of applying them together. Similarly on the seeds trial, but what is interesting, in some cases, like here, we can see that sometimes biological could provide even higher effect on the yield of crops than starting fertilizers. And again, we tested different methods of application in furrow, which I already showed you, but also we use it with urea ammonium nitrate, with Eli-Sprint fertilization. We use it sometimes with soil herbicides, both foliar and soil. And in most cases, we have a quite good response of the yield. So then we go to different direction into the improvement of quality of applications. So here we have a product Liposam, which is one of our unique developments. It's more than 35 years old. I mean, it has roots. 20 years we are using it in agriculture on millions of hectares, and for 5 years we sell it now in Germany and in Europe. It has organic certification, it's quite easy to work with, and main claims of this product are improve rain fastness, which is described on these tests, like when we make a model of rain, we can preserve up to like 100 or few times more active substance on the leaves than without the product. It also improves the coverage in some difficult crops like cabbage, and it also improves sticking of active substances of herbicides in soil when we apply it with soil herbicides. So for us, very important is to get very representative and scientific proof of our concepts. So here we tested use of liposome together with herbicides, both soil and foliar, in Germany on winter rapeseed, and in both cases we get a significant response of the yield. Besides that, we have another formulation of liposome. It's a bigger concentration product, which we use for prevention of losses of crops like canola, soya, and also some fruit berries to prevent their cracking. And example, this trial actually was also organized in Germany. That photo was made by me, because very often seed producers, they work a lot on the prevention of cracking of the pods of canola, for example. But still, when there is temperature differences, when there is strong wind, in this case there was rain the night before, still we have this problem of empty pods and losses of the yield. In some cases, that losses could be up to like 30% and more. And with this solution, we had plenty of tests when we really see how like a farmer can preserve 300-500 kilograms of yield per hectare. And one more direction is abiotic stresses and drought tolerance. So we very often, again, we start from the control conditions. So 5 years ago, we make some simple experiment in the laboratory. We had corn, we treated with liposome solution, and we stopped watering it for 1 week. After we returned watering after 1 week, we have seen that plants treated by this product recovers much better. Then we go into field studies. We did it for 3 years. We saw like analysis of significant difference, etc. And here we find out that among all our range of biostimulants, the best to preserve yield in arid conditions were nitrogen fixing product AzotoHelp and liposome adhesive. Even though normally we positionize liposome just only as a kind of adjuvant or adhesive, but still it's acting as one of our best biostimulants. And here for us was interesting to see why that happens. And last year we go into some additional studies to see how it influences the plants. So we look, for example, on the relative water content in the leaves of corn, and after application of the products, and we have seen that liposome was one of the best to preserve water in the plants. And besides that, we also did analysis of relative gene expression in maize leaves. We analyzed expression of the genes which are responsible for reaction to the arid conditions. And here we could see that also use of AzotoHelp and liposome decreased the level of this reaction, which means like that use of these biologicals activates a kind of protective mechanisms of corn to be more prepared for the arid periods. So with that, I want to say that from our experience of using of biologicals on millions of hectares, tested them in thousands of trials, really potential is very big in very wide conditions, and because it's part of nature and nature works. Thank you.